We welcome back to the show Republican House Leader Kevin McCarthy, great friend and great crusader. First of all, Mr. Leader, thank you for your time. We know you're very, very busy.
Well, thank you for having me back on, Larry. Great show, by the way. Congratulations to you.
All right, you're wonderful. So we got President Biden out in Wisconsin selling this so-called infrastructure plan. A lot of people, including myself, think he double-crossed the negotiators, the bipartisan negotiators. But I just wondered up front, Nancy Pelosi is saying that she is going to hold this bill, this infrastructure hostage until and unless she gets the grand reconciliation bill, which, as you know, is a tsunami of entitlements and a tsunami of tax hikes, all of which will really damage the economy. So what's Pelosi's story? What do you make of it?
Well, first of all, Joe Biden has jeopardized any ability to have a joint agreement on anything in the future. You watched him 1 minute sit with a bipartisan group of senators and say, I have an agreement, then turn around and give the entire country whiplash by going against it, saying you've got to pass everything else. Pelosi, as you know, and dealing with her when you were in the administration, is a very tough individual. The Speaker has a lot of power in the House, and what she's saying is she will move nothing unless you give her $5 trillion. So in essence, Pelosi is also blowing up the agreement as well. She is really placating to the socialist wing of the Democratic Party. You have to raise taxes on everybody. You got to spend $5 trillion to have anything come out. So I don't know what the president is really outselling, because from the very beginning, he blew up and jeopardized any ability of having that joint agreement. And now he's got his own speaker working against him as well.
And, you know, Leader, I have not heard one word, not one whisper, no matter what some of these White House aides are trying to blow smoke and mirrors at us, nothing about de-linking, which is really what the negotiators wanted, de-linking.
Yes.
The issue of a veto, that's a straw horse. That's a red herring. There was never an issue there. It's de-linking. So Biden has not said no to delinking. Schumer has not said no to delinking. And Pelosi, absolutely, she wants to link the two, which tells me this is not serious.
It's not serious at all, because then you had AOC praising Nancy Pelosi, saying she wouldn't move anything until the Senate had acted. Why would you want to give your power away? But it just shows this is really a political game. And Larry, you know this as well, how hard President Trump worked at trying to get an infrastructure agreement, and who held it up and stopped it the whole time? Nancy Pelosi, because she didn't want to give the Trump administration a win. And she's held it up before, and it looks like she's going to hold this one up for $5 trillion in tax increases. Otherwise, you get nothing.
Right. I was in one of those catastrophic meetings in the cabinet room. I don't know, you might have been in one too, but you're right about that. Let me just ask you, Kevin, in terms of the Republican House conference, does the conference like the infrastructure bill? I mean, there's some good in the bill, but there's no Keystone, there's no Anwar. There's a lot of unionization. There's a lot of Green New Deal. And best I can determine, there's no NEPA permitting reforms either, which to me is vital. So, you know, what are your troops saying?
Well, you know, I sat down with the president in the Oval Office, and he asked me, would Republicans agree to a bipartisan infrastructure? And I said, if that's the question, the answer is yes. Then his next question to me was, how much would you spend? I said, that's the wrong question. What we first should do is sit down and define what is infrastructure. Then once we define that, we could decide what the need is. And once you define that, you have to have NEPA reform, so we don't wait 10 years to build the road, the bridge, the airport, or the broadband that we need for this nation. It's very simple. And Republicans produced a bill that will build more for less money. It's paid for. And with all the money that's been appropriated with COVID that's not spent, you could actually put that into a good infrastructure bill with NEPA reform and have people working and the infrastructure building in the next year.
Yeah, you're so right. So let's switch gears. No tech censorship is basically what Kevin McCarthy is saying, and others, my pal Jim Jordan is saying it. Tell me what you're thinking.
Look, on technology, you've got the Democrats who were the managers of the impeachment, who wanted President Trump kicked off Twitter even earlier, saying they want to give government more power. They want to give the FTC all the power. And who is running the FTC? The person who worked for Nadler and Cicilline. What we believe, the power should rest with the people. We've watched these technology companies kicking people off on the basis of what they say from being conservative, or they're talking about COVID or others. We think there needs to be transparency. And that means if you want to kick speech off, then you should lose the ability of Section 230. You shouldn't have that protection umbrella that you can't be sued, because you need to have a right of action. What we also need is accountability going forward. We can't have these companies being monopolies in the process of what they're doing. I mean, think about it. If you think of the four biggest things out there, from a Google, from a YouTube, from a Facebook and Instagram, it's four big companies. No, there's not. It's just two. 90% of everything that's searched goes through Google. And, you know, back in 2018, right before the election, if you Googled what's the California Republican Party philosophy, they said Nazism. Oh. And 90% of everybody drops off if you're on the second page. So we need transparency, accountability to be able to hold these companies accountable, but also have competition.
You know, I'm totally with you on getting rid of 230. I mean, that's just the liability shield, because they are acting as publishers, they are acting as editors, and they are censoring conservative opinion. Absolutely. But, you know, Kevin, I get concerned a little bit. I understand the deplatforming, and I know how they damage Parler. I get that, Apple and Facebook and others. But antitrust doesn't necessarily mean we deal with the censorship issue. And I do worry about that.
It doesn't, yeah.
You've got some American champions, not Facebook, I don't know what, they're not the champion of anything. But you've got your Microsofts and your Googles and your Apples. You know, they're doing stuff. We may not like their politics, but they're doing stuff, you know, artificial intelligence, you know, high-speed computing, cloudware, they help us with 5G and other things. So I don't want to kick the baby out with the bathwater.
No, they have a place there too, but they cannot have the ability to censure you on what you're able to say. They shouldn't have the ability to only put certain things up within a Google if they control the ability. The antitrust there, we should be able to have competition. There was something before Google. There was Microsoft. There was Yahoo. Could that individual come up? It takes too much time to get into the Supreme Court to really test that antitrust. So what you need is a mechanism where you have the ability to move faster. Otherwise, they're too large. They beat you down. But look, there's benefits to the AI and everything else they're doing, but I like to see competition, because what happens is they're just going to become a big utility. You're going to lose competition. We're going to lose against China, but more importantly, they're going to be controlling what people are saying and what people can see. And that's a fundamental mistake when it comes to America. Right. We can't allow it.
No, I hear you on that. Last one. I couldn't believe my ears, but Madam Psaki and some others, I think Cedric Richmond said this on Sunday, Biden, White House assistant, the GOP is the party that wants to defund police. And I went, huh? Well, huh? Did I hear that right? But here I have you right in front of me, and you're the authority. You're the leader. What say you about this?
Oh, my God. I couldn't even believe I heard him say it. Well, let's just talk about Chicago. There is no Republican there, and there was more than 70 shootings just this weekend. You look at New York, you look at LA, every place they defunded the police, you got rise in crime. You got the Congress that defunded. The Democrats have gone further than just defunding. They now want to eliminate police altogether. No bail. So we're watching people in San Francisco just to ride in their bikes, load up whatever they want in the store and just ride out with nothing ever happening. We're watching a revolving door of crime happening day after day. And this is all directly caused by the Democrats' philosophical belief and Soros spending money electing DAs, which now we're trying to recall in LA, because they don't believe in the rule of law. There's no greater contrast to where Republicans and Democrats stand on their issue, and I fundamentally believe why the Democrats are trying to lie even more now is because they're going to lose the majority on this issue alone, along with the border. Oh,
yes, indeed. You know, the $350 billion, this is the last thought, Kevin, the $350 billion in community funds that was in the COVID relief bill last winter, that was not intended to refund police or put more cops on the street. President Biden started talking about that, using that money for cops, because Eric Adams, the ex-cop Democrat, won on a law and order platform in New York City. And then suddenly Biden comes out and says, oh, well, you can use that money to refund the police. But that's the first time. They had campaigned against using it for that. Am I right on that? I mean, that's the chronicle.
Right.
That's the narrative that I recall.
They vote against it. The reason they put $350 billion in and they changed the order in which how states got it, it was to pay the pensions of the liberal states. That is exactly what they fought for. I was in the room. I heard their arguments. They would put restrictions on it that you couldn't use it for police. Then you watch those two young kids walking their neighborhood in New York where someone's tackling them because they're being shot at. You watch an election happen in New York City, quickly they start changing their tune, but they haven't. That's not their philosophy. If you watch what they're doing on the bills in the House, they're defunding the police, they're taking away no bail so people don't have to ever go to jail. And they're changing districts of attorneys so no one's ever prosecuted. That is what's causing the crime within our cities, the Democrat policies and philosophy.
Thank you, sir. Republican House Leader Kevin McCarthy, soon to be Speaker McCarthy. Thanks for your time.